Hey guys, I have been playing many different rogue builds in the PTR last week, and today I want to make a comprehensive analysis of basically all of these different builds that we have right now, and that will also be a thing in Season 6 when the new DLC Vessel of Hatred comes out. And yeah, I thought it's a fun idea to make a tier list today and just rank all of these different rogue builds. And so some words before we start with the actual tier list. So here you can see I have different tiers from S plus tier to D tier. And they also have a specific range of DPS numbers attached to each of the tiers. So here this list is not only based on my personal feelings or something, but it's more like I try to assume and calculate the average DPS, so damage per second, of each of these builds. So what you can expect from it in the end game with some perfect gear and perfect setups. And so yeah, this is based on some weird calculations from my side where I both calculate in the average damage in the pit, for example, but also the boss damage, so the single target damage versus bosses. And also what we have seen so far in the PTR. And I will also showcase a lot of different other content creators and videos from other rogue players here. So yeah, this is something that you have to expect here. And of course, everything is based on assumptions, so a lot of stuff can change until Vessel of Hatred gets released. So yeah, it's just for fun purposes and just to give you the state of rogue right now, but it can obviously change. Okay, and so now let's actually start with the tier list here. So I have to check on my sheet first. Okay, so first let's talk about some new builds. So in Season 6 we will have two new builds, which are gonna be the Invigorating Strike Rogue and the Shadow Step Rogue. So both builds are possible due to the new tempering recipes that we will receive for all rogue weapons. And so for Invigorating Strike and for Shadow Step, we will have a new recipe which causes these skills to cleave. And cleave means that basically the single target damage of each of the skills will turn into AoE damage. So you will deal the same damage, you will deal it to surrounding enemies. And this way, of course, we can have much better and faster clear times because we're just dealing AoE damage instead of single target damage. And I can also show you here some gameplay footage. So this is from Lexio. He seems to be a rogue player that likes many off-meta builds. I will also feature another rogue build later from him. But here this is Lexio's Shadow Step Rogue. So this build is basically playing around Shadow Step, and so Shadow Step is your main source of damage here, and you can see this is, by the way, a tier 85 pit, so not too low actually. So yeah, you basically just spam your Shadow Step and you deal this not too badly AoE damage here. And of course you can also cast caltrops from time to time, and you also use cold imbuement, so you deal more damage with cold imbuement, especially versus frozen enemies. So yeah, this is a very fun build, and I also heard from the Maxroll podcast, Mipi said that Shadow Step Rogue will be the fastest build for speed farming Nightmare dungeons for materials. So if you want to masterwork, you will need a lot of this Optosite Axe from Nightmare dungeons. So yeah, Shadow Step Rogue seems pretty fun. It's not the strongest, most powerful build, so that's why I have to put it here somewhere into C tier. So so these both builds are kind of similar, but Invigorating Strikes is maybe even half as strong as Shadow Step Rogue. So Invigorating Strike more like 1 million DPS, and Shadow Step Rogue more like more near to 2 billion DPS. So it's somewhere between C and B tier actually. And also one thing I forgot, keep in mind, so this is the rogue tier list, okay? So if we compare all of these rogue builds to some other classes like Druid or Necromancer, it might be the case that this C and D tier rogue builds are still much better than most of the Necromancer or Barb or Druid builds, just because Rogue has so many amazing builds this season or next season. So keep that in mind. This is just Rogue intern tier list, and other classes might be even less powerful than the weakest build of Rogue, okay? So just keep that in mind. But yeah, this was the Shadow Step Rogue, Invigorating Strike Rogue. Looks very similar. And the next build I want to talk about is the Paingorger's Heartseeker Rogue. So here I can showcase you some gameplay from my channel. This is also a guide I uploaded recently. So we have this Heartseeker Rogue. In Season 4, Heartseeker was very dominant, was the most popular build, I believe, also on my channel. And so the Victimize key passive from Rogue has changed, and now it also got reworked entirely for Season 6, but we will talk about Victimize a bit later in the higher tiers. So in Season 5, we needed to use the Paingorger's gauntlets in order to also deal AoE damage with Heartseeker, which is naturally also a single target damage skill. So you can see every time the enemies have these yellow circles around their heads, it means that they are marked by the Paingorgers. And this way we also deal quite a decent amount of AoE damage, but it's a bit clunky to play and also not the most powerful build. So here I'm pretty much able to clear a speed farm tier 8 Infernal Hordes. So the hardest content, or the hardest efficient content that you can do in Season 5. So it's pretty powerful here. But again, in Season 6 we will have so many powerful rogue builds that I cannot rank this build higher. But if you like playing Heartseeker and with Paingorgers deal some AoE damage, you can still do that in Season 6. It's not a problem. But here it's a clear B tier build for me. It will deal about 2.5 billion DPS on average, as far as I have calculated it. So yeah, not too good, but not too bad as well. And we also will talk about another Heartseeker build, which actually we can do now. So we will have also the Victimize Heartseeker Rogue build. So here I have a gameplay clip from DoK side, which also is kinda the popularizer of Heartseeker Rogue in Season 5, and also was one of the first persons to share some PTR Victimize version of Heartseeker. So here we have a hybrid build again between Heartseeker and Victimize. So the problem with Victimize is it's actually so powerful that you want to completely scale your damage with Victimize. And so you actually don't want to scale your Heartseeker damage at all anymore. So you're not playing a basic skill build, but it's just a Victimize build which uses Heartseeker as your lucky chance activator, because you need to lucky hit the enemies in order to cause this big explosions from Victimize. And that's why Heartseeker is here. So I can say it's not the most powerful enabler for Victimize builds. There will be 2 or 3 better versions of it later. But if you like to use the Heartseeker skill and you don't care about not dealing damage at all with it, but just activating your Victimize explosions with it, then this build is pretty decent for you, I guess. But yeah, this is, for me, it's an A tier build probably. So I assume it will be in the A tier somewhere between 5 to 10 billion DPS, just because how broken Victimize is currently in the PTR. But yeah, we will cover Victimize a bit later as well. The next build in the A tier will be Flurry Rogue. So Flurry Rogue, I was a big fan of Flurry Rogue this season. I have mainly focused my entire season around different variants and versions of the Flurry Rogue build. And here you can see the pure Flurry variant. So we are not using any imbuements, we just deal all of the damage we are dealing comes from the physical Flurry damage itself. And you can see it's a tier 90 pit. I didn't have the best gear whatsoever in the PTR, so especially the amulet is something you can always improve. So here the enemies turn immune before I can actually kill them. That's not too good for the clear speed here. But you can see the damage numbers a bit and it's not too bad. And it's still, yeah, you can still improve this build a lot with some better setup. But Flurry Rogue will get significantly better in Season 6 just because we will receive some important tempering recipe, which makes Flurry hit twice. So in Season 5, only Marksman skill could cast double projectiles, which basically doubles your entire damage output of the build. And now more skills, so the most important damage skills in the Rogue class will have access to this tempering recipes. And so this build will receive a huge buff, so you double your damage alone by this new tempering recipe. And also some other nice buffs. For example, momentum will be reworked a bit, and it's much easier to maintain your momentum stacks with cutthroat skills. So it will be pretty decent build overall, and for all Flurry Rogue enjoyers, also like myself, I think you will have a lot of fun in Season 6 with Flurry Rogue. So yeah, I will also make a guide for that as well, for sure, in Season 6. So yeah, Flurry Rogue, pretty good. And nothing to say more here, I think. So let's continue with some other builds. We have a kind of new build, at least in Season 5. I didn't see many people play it, which is Smoke Grenade Rogue, or in general Grenade Rogue. And here I have another gameplay from Lexio, like I have teased already. So he's seems to be an off-meta meme lord for the Rogue class a bit, but actually this build is not too bad. So here he's even clearing a tier 100 pit. He takes about 8 minutes, but he clears it at the end. So Grenade Rogue also will receive some meaningful buffs in Season 6. Also new tempering recipe for Smoke Grenade to deal double damage. Very important, obviously, just like with the Flurry, it buffs the build a lot. And here the funny thing is, you can see you just spam one skill for damage again, so you Smoke Grenade. So this is very similar to Shadow Step Rogue. You just spam your Smoke Grenade, and it also resets its cooldown because you hit multiple elites at once. So it's very easy to maintain the cooldown of the skill. And you also drop a bunch of other stun grenades. So you have a lot of aspects. So Rogue has like, I think, 4 different stun grenade aspects. Each of them buffs your grenade damage. Also the new legendary glyphs got buffed by a lot. So you have this explosive glyph, and I think it increases your overall grenade damage by 60% multiplicatively. So before it was only... No, it was nothing. Before you just had damage reduction after using stun grenades, but now you have 60% more DPS with grenades if you reach level 100 with this glyph. Here we also just saw it hit for 500 million DPS, one grenade explosion. So the damage output is pretty crazy here. So I believe you will also reach something between 5 to 10 million DPS, so something around 7 billion DPS is what I assume with this Grenade Rogue build. What makes it a clear tier A contender for all of the Rogue builds. So if you like, spam all of these grenades and also become invisible from time to time. So you play a lot with stealth and the new unique ring. I think it's called Gull or something. A new unique ring which makes you go into stealth mode every second. I think this is a pretty unique playstyle and also looks very fun to me. So maybe I will try that as well. But yes, Smoke Grenade Rogue or Grenade Rogue in general will be pretty powerful and fun. But let's continue, we have a lot of Rogue builds still to cover. The next one is the Rain of Arrows Rogue. Here I have a gameplay footage from Shapti. So here he's not playing this exactly Rogue build that I'm talking about now. So the Rain of Arrows build that I have in mind is the one that plays with the new key passive that Rogue receives in Season 6 and with the DLC especially, which is called Alchemical Admixture. So with Alchemical Admixture you can scale your poison imbuement damage by quite a lot. So in fact, poison imbuement damage will become something like 10 times more potent than before. So you have a huge scaling factor here with this passive. It scales off non-physical damage, which you can achieve with, I think, 3 glyphs, 3 legendary glyphs in your Paragon. So you can scale it pretty well in the end game. But here I think this build is focused around critical strike damage and precision. And you can see he's clearing only tier 80. But with my build that I have in mind, with the poison version, so we will deal most of the damage with poison from the imbuements of the Rain of Arrows. And Rain of Arrows with the amulet, Hakan, will be imbued with all elements at once, so it will be also very easy to proc this new key passive from Rogue. So with Alchemical Exmixture you need to deal, I think, 3 different elemental types of damage, and then you will have this huge scaling multiplier for your poison. So yeah, I think this will be very solid A tier build. It's also on the edge from A to S tier actually, so it will deal somewhere around 8 to 10 million DPS, I believe, and especially you can see like the area of effect is very huge here, so the entire screen will be full with several or multiple copies of Rain of Arrow waves. So I guess you will need also quite solid system for that. So the FPS might drop here from time to time, and yeah, I think it will be a lot of fun. And I would say let's continue with another build. We have still a lot to cover. So very similar to this Rain of Arrows build, we will also have Twisting Blades Rogue. So Twisting Blades Rogue also works with the new passive, so with the admixtures, and also scales its damage mainly by poison. Here I can show you a clip of mine where in the PTR I killed this Pit 95 boss. So here keep in mind this is a demon, so I was still abusing the bug with the Hair of Perdition, the new mythic unique. So in the PTR the boss dealing 3 times more damage versus demons. But you can see the damage ramps up quite quickly, and in the end I reached something about 4.5 billion. But even though this is buggy here right now, I still believe that this will be a very, very potent build, and with the perfect gear, with the perfect setup, I think we will deal even more, something about 6 billion poison ticks. So 2 poison ticks per second, keep that in mind. So this will be about more than 12 billion DPS on the boss during the staggering phase. So yeah, versus bosses especially, this build will be just crazy. It will probably deal the most single target DPS in the entire game, or at least for a rogue class. But the reason why it's an A tier is that you can see here the AoE damage on the other hand is not too great. So Twisting Blades is more like a single target damage skill, so for bosses like I mentioned it's just crazy. 6 billion poisoned DPS ticks is what I expect from it, but the AoE damage is not too great, and for that reason it just doesn't feel too rewarding playing it, even in the pit where I don't have too many enemies at once. But especially when the Infernal Hordes will be back live in Season 6, I don't think this build will be feel good to play too much. So for bossing, for killing the first Torment bosses or World Tier 4 bosses, this might be a very good starter build, so maybe I will start with the Poison Rogue here. I will make a video for my starter Rogue as well, I think. But then it's not perfect in the end game. So for me, this is a A tier build for AoE content, but for single target damage, it's actually an S plus tier. So more than 50 billion DPS, maybe a little bit less with the staggering, and if you consider staggering an average damage boss, well, in a 1 minute fight or something, but still something like 12 billion DPS maybe for the average boss fight, so pretty huge. And then let's continue with the next build. So what do we have next? Next I want to talk about the Rapid Fire Rogue. So here we are coming closer, and so we are in fact in the S tier territory now. So more than 10 billion DPS on average, and this is the case for Rapid Fire Rogue, for example. So here we have some gameplay, not from the PTR, but from Season 5. A very small creator here, or just a guy who uploaded some videos, but it's the Pit 155, so I just took this random gameplay here. Rapid Fire is very good for pit pushing. It just has an insanely high amount of damage, which you can deal in a kind of in a kind of small area of effect, but it's very good for pit because you don't have too many enemies at once in the pit, and especially the boss fight is pretty good with Rapid Fire Rogue, so you deal a lot of single target damage as well. And yeah, I think this build will be very potent in Season 6. I'm not sure if it will receive some major updates. So of course we have the legendary glyphs, which also increases the critical strike damage, so you can scale your precision passive a bit better. So we still have some double dipping going on in the key passives of Rogue. So for that reason it should just deal more damage. But yeah, Rapid Fire is pretty strong now and will be even more powerful, I believe, in Season 6. And the damage calculation here looks pretty good. So I also know some guys cleared the tier 100 in the PTR in about 4 to 5 minutes, something like 440 maybe. So yeah, I think for all Rapid Fire enjoyers, it will be still a pretty good build. We are still playing with Cold Imbuement just to burst out some damage versus frozen enemies. So this build is very crowd control dependent, like many Rogue builds. But if you enjoy also play some combo points, it's the build for you. The next build we have is a build that is not so dependent on crowd controlling effects, and this is Deathtrapper Rogue. So this was one of the biggest surprises maybe. So there are some Deathtrap enjoyers who try this build every season, but it's always a off-meta build, a meme build kinda, it's not too powerful. But with Season 6 we will have some major changes to ultimate skills. So ultimate skills can be scaled now with skill ranks. Also the Harlequin Crest Shaker, for example, increases the skill ranks of ultimate skills, and they get both more potent in their damage, and also the cooldown gets reduced further with each skill rank invested. And for that reason we can play a pretty cool Beastfall Boots ultimate skill Rogue build here. So the Beastfall Boots enable us to reset our ultimate skill every attack basically. So you can see we can just spam our death trap every second, or even 2 times per second or something. And all of this damage here comes from the death trap itself, and it's reaching damage numbers from 1 billion to 3 billion sometimes. So with some very good endgame gear, I believe that this build will deal quite a bit of damage. So something about 10 to 12 million DPS with multiple billions of damage per death trap. And the very cool thing here is that it's a very unique playstyle on the one hand. So it also works the same as Rain of Arrows Rogue, by the way. So you just reset your cooldown every second, you just spam it, it's very fun. And also the boss fight is kind of cool because you are not that dependent on staggering and freezing and stuff like that, but instead it just has a very decent flat damage output. So it will be a very good feeling to fight the boss, and I'm not sure if he shows it here somewhere as well. I'm pretty sure he does. So the boss fight should look very cool, very easy. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this build. I think this will be one of the strongest builds next season, and especially it's pretty safe towards some nerfs. And there might be nerfs, especially if we talk about the next build. So the next build is the Barrage Victimize Rogue. So now we are talking about a Victimize build. So with Victimize, the key passive got reworked. It's just completely different now, and it's also way more powerful now. So Victimize scales its damage with vulnerable damage, and we have a lot of exploits with vulnerable damage, so a lot of double dipping going on again, like in Season 4. And yeah, it's just crazy easy to scale your Victimize damage in the end game, especially with all the tempers and affixes you can roll on items. So here I also have a clip from some player called Astrea, and he or she is here also playing in the tier 100 pit, and you can see it's clear time 3 minute 52. So here I'm not sure if this is maybe even close to an S+ tier build. So it's by far one of the most powerful builds in the Rogue class right now, and you can see that Victimize is just a little bit too good right now, and maybe it will also get nerfed a bit. So this build is not safe for nerfs at all. But the idea is very simple. It's just like the Andariel's Barrage Rogue from Season 5, which was the most powerful Rogue build. So you just use Barrage for its many Lucky Chance procs. So we have a ton of Lucky Chance here. And with this Lucky Chance, we just activate and proc this multiple explosions at once. And these Victimize explosions are dealing massive amounts of damage. And yeah, you can see it's very easy. This pit 100, which should be the hardest content actually in the game, it just looks too easy with this build. So it's just not a problem at all to clear this packs here. So it's also hard to assume the correct amount of damage. You can see the damage numbers are just crazy. You just can't reliably see any damage number basically, but yeah, these explosions deal around 500 to 1 billion damage, I believe, and if you have multiple at once, then you can imagine how crazy the damage output really is. And yeah, this is the Barrage Rogue, one of the most powerful builds in Season 6, so maybe even S+ tier. It's difficult to assume to me, but for S+, I have for now only put the Dance of Knives Rogue build with the Victimize. So Dance of Knives works the same as Barrage Rogue. You just use the new mobility skill from Rogue in order to proc your lucky chances. So here it's just a spin to win build, as many people call it. The Whirlwind Barb is now a Rogue class. You just spin around, you spam your skill here, and yeah, you just proc the Victimize explosions, just like with Barrage. But of course it looks more fun here a little bit, so I personally think it's more fun than Barrage, and you just spin around, you're more mobile, it just looks cooler, more powerful. But yeah, actually these two builds are very close in terms of damage, and maybe Barrage does deal even more damage. But this is, I also think, the fastest clear so far from some Rogue players. This is, of course, from Meepy, the #1 Rogue, you could say. So shoutouts to Meepy here, and he cleared it in 3 minutes 20. He also spent a lot of time during PTR to perfect this build, basically. I think he also wears some boots with +7 ranks to Warcry, just to get some more damage out of the Warcry rune. So we also have this new rune words. And yeah, so this way he can even maximize his damage. And he's playing with... So he's not playing with Umbris aspect anymore, so he just needs to auto-cast his Dark Shrouds in order to survive. So this is also some tech that you can do, so for that reason he has another offensive aspect on his pants. He's playing without any defensive aspects, basically. So for that reason it's a little bit hard to compare. Meepy is very into speed farming and other players don't invest too much time into it as him. But... nonetheless, this build is very powerful and might be, nonetheless, the most powerful Rogue build that we have right now. So for that reason, for me, this is a clear S+ tier build right now and the #1 build that we saw in the PTR. But in fact, I have another secret build. But before I show you that, I want to mention that, of course, Victimize is very powerful, and also Dance of Knives has maybe 1 or 2 bugs that might get fixed. So for that reason, we can also keep in mind that if Victimize gets nerfed, then it will look a little bit different in the end. So then we will have these nerfed versions of Victimize, and they all should fall by around 1 or 2 tiers after the nerfs. So maybe in the end they will end up like something like A tier builds or even B tier builds with the Heartseeker version of Victimize. So just keep that in mind, and a lot can still change. But now I also want to tease a little bit of a secret build that I have in mind for Season 6, which is the Overpower Rogue. So I don't want to share all the details right now, but I have worked on an Overpower version of Flurry Rogue. So here we will also play with Flurry. And so I want to basically abuse this amulet here. I forgot the name of it, but nonetheless it makes you overpower with your attacks. And I actually believe that this Overpower Rogue will be also very solid and also will deal maybe more than 50 billion DPS. So we will see if that will work out, but just keep in mind, and so you know that I was one of the first to to see the potential here, maybe, that Overpower Rogue might become a thing in Season 6, especially if Overpower gets more buffed, so it's already more powerful than now, because of the stat quiz of our maximum life and base life, for example. But Overpower might be even more powerful in Season 6 than now, so yeah, Overpower Rogue might be also very fun, but I will share the build when it's ready, and Season 6 is a bit closer, so yeah, just wait until there. Okay guys, I hope that was fun and you now have quite a good overview of all of the different rogue builds. I guess it was a long video again, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I guess I see you in the next videos, so I can't wait for Vessel of Hatred. I have a lot of builds in mind, and also most of these builds here, or at least the most powerful builds, I will cover all of them and make a lot of guides in Season 6, so you can play whatever you like and have the best versions of it. Okay guys, so I see you until there, and have a nice day. Leave me a like and subscribe to this channel if you want to support me. And yeah, have a nice day. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.